Namaskar. A warm welcome to World News and Indian Perspective on All India Radio. This is Gaurav Sharma, and with me is Abhineet Shukla, bringing glimpses of the major developments of the day from across the globe. Over the next half an hour, we shall bring you the latest from the world of politics, economy, sports, entertainment, and more. The headlines first. India's External Affairs Minister Dr. S. Shankar reaches Maldives on a 2-day visit, says India-Maldives special partnership is poised to deepen further. International flights to and from India to resume from the 26th of March midnight. Prime Minister Narendra Modi to share his thoughts in Man Ki Baat on All India Radio on Sunday at 11 a.m. US President Joe Biden meets Ukraine Foreign Minister Dmytro Kuleba and Defense Minister Oleksiy Reznikov in Warsaw. Indian Minister Anurag Thakur visits iconic India Pavilion in Dubai Expo 2020, assures all support to make India a global film destination and post-production hub. Indian shuttlers PV Sindhu and HS Pranoy storm into singles title clashes of Swiss Open at Basel. And the 15th edition of the Indian Premier League kicks off in Mumbai. Chennai Super Kings set a target of 132 runs before Kolkata Knight Riders in the opening match.
As we begin the bulletin, we appeal to our listeners to stay safe from COVID-19 by following these 4 simple steps. Get fully vaccinated, wear a face mask, maintain 2 gaz ki doori for social distancing, focus on hand and face hygiene. And now, the news in detail.
India's External Affairs Minister Dr. S. Shankar reached Mahdi in Maldives this evening on a 2-day official visit. He was welcomed by Foreign Minister of the island nation Abdullah Shahid. In a tweet, Dr. S. Shankar said that the India-Maldives special partnership is poised to deepen further. Dr. Shankar is scheduled to call on President Ibrahim Mohammed Solih. The External Affairs Minister's visit will see the signing of several agreements related to the bilateral development cooperation, inauguration, handing over and launch of a number of key India-supported projects that will contribute to the socio-economic development of the Maldives and enhance its security.
International flights to and from India will resume from 26th of March midnight. The flight operations are going to restart after a gap of 2 years. The Civil Aviation Ministry had suspended the regular international flights in March 2020 in view of the COVID-19 pandemic. According to the ministry, international operations shall be subject to strict adherence to the Ministry of Health and Family Welfare guidelines for international travel. Airport Authority of India has said it has revised its existing COVID-19 guidelines concerned with international operations. According to the revised guidelines, the restriction of keeping 3 seats vacant on international flights is removed. The requirement of a complete PPE kit for crew members also stands removed. The pat-down search conducted by the security personnel at the airport is reintroduced. Wearing masks at the airport or in aircraft should still be continued.
Prime Minister Narendra Modi will share his thoughts with the people in the country and abroad in the Man Ki Baat program on All India Radio at 11 a.m. on Sunday. It will be the 87th episode of the monthly radio program. The program will be broadcast on the entire network of All India Radio and Doordarshan, the AIR News website, and on the News on AIR mobile app.
US President Joe Biden reached Poland's capital Warsaw on Saturday, where he met with Ukrainian Foreign Minister Dmytro Kuleba and Defense Minister Oleksiy Reznikov at the Marriott Hotel in central Warsaw. It was Mr. Biden's first talks with top Kiev officials since Russia's military operation began. US Secretary of State Antony Blinken and Defense Secretary Lloyd Austin, who accompanied Mr. Biden in his journey, were present with the Ukrainian ministers. The US President also met with his Polish counterpart Andrzej Duda, with whom he will address Russia's military operation with Ukraine and reassure nations that they have the support of the United States.
Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky has made a surprise video appearance at Qatar's Doha Forum. Zelensky, in his video address, criticized Russia's ongoing military operation in his nation. He called on the United Nations and world powers to come to his aid. Earlier, in his nightly video address to the nation, Mr. Zelensky had again appealed to Russia to negotiate an end to the war, but says Ukraine would not agree to give up any of its territory for the sake of peace. Russian-backed separatists have controlled a part of the Donbas region of eastern Ukraine since 2014, and the Russian forces have been battling to seize the besieged city of Mariupol.
The governor of the Kiev region says that Russian forces have entered the city of Slavutych and seized a hospital there. Slavutych is located north of Kiev and west of Chernihiv, outside the exclusion zone that was established around the Chernobyl nuclear power plant after the 1986 disaster. It is home to workers at the Chernobyl site. The governor said that residents of Slavutych took to the streets with Ukrainian flags to protest the Russian forces. Britain's defense ministry said Russia continues to besiege a number of major Ukrainian cities, including Kharkiv, Chernihiv, and Mariupol.
Turkish President Recep Tayyip Erdogan spoke to Ukraine's Volodymyr Zelensky on telephone, discussing the situation in Ukraine and negotiations between Moscow and Kiev. According to Erdogan's office, the Turkish president told his counterpart that he had raised Turkey's support for Ukrainian territorial integrity at a recent NATO summit, where he had relayed the diplomatic efforts made by Turkey in one-on-one meetings with the other leaders. Ankara, which has close ties with both Russia and Ukraine, has positioned itself as a neutral party seeking to facilitate negotiations between the warring sides.
India's Information and Broadcasting Minister Anurag Thakur on Saturday arrived in Dubai to participate in Media and Entertainment Fortnight at India Pavilion in Dubai Expo 2020. The minister visited the iconic India Pavilion that showcases India to the world. Mr. Thakur also visited the Ministry of Information and Broadcasting Corner at the ministerial floor at India Pavilion. He interacted with India's Consul General in Dubai, Aman Puri, and film director Shankar at the pavilion. Mr. Thakur also met and greeted enthusiastic Indian visitors at the India Pavilion. In a tweet, Mr. Thakur said, "The power of Indian cinema and the artists has caught the imagination of the world." He said, "The government is committed to support and showcase what India has to offer to the world as a film destination and post-production hub." The minister took a view of the 3D miniature statue of BAPS temple, the only Hindu temple being constructed in Abu Dhabi. He admired the ghats of Varanasi on the incredible India floor of India Pavilion.
Prime Minister Narendra Modi on Saturday said India is honoured to be home to a state-of-the-art WHO Global Centre for Traditional Medicine. In a series of tweets on Saturday, Mr. Modi said that Indian traditional medicines and wellness practices are very popular globally. Here's a report.
Prime Minister Narendra Modi said this WHO centre will go a long way in enhancing wellness in our society. He added that the centre will contribute towards making a healthier planet and leveraging our rich traditional practices for global good. The Prime Minister lauded the efforts of Indian Embassy in Doha for organising yoga lessons for 140 nationalities at Doha in Qatar. He said yoga is uniting the world in pursuit of good health and wellness. WHO and the government has agreed to establish the WHO Global Centre for Traditional Medicine to maximize the potential of traditional medicines through modern science and technology. The Ministry of Ayush has signed the host country agreement with World Health Organization for establishing WHO Global Centre for Traditional Medicine at Jamnagar in Gujarat. WHO, in a statement, said the Global Knowledge Centre for Traditional Medicine, supported by an investment of $250 million from the Government of India, aims to harness the potential of traditional medicine from across the world through modern science and technology to improve the health of people and the planet. Ramya, for World News, All India Radio.
Earth Hour was observed in India from 8:30 p.m. to 9:30 p.m. on Saturday. It is the world's largest grassroots movement for the environment, where people around the globe unite to take a stand against climate change by turning off non-essential lights for 1 hour. The theme of this year's global event was Shape Our Future, highlighting our collective responsibility towards the environment.
In today's Hotspot section, we bring you a discussion on environmental challenges and the Earth Hour movement. In conversation are Vidya Sondarajan, Director Ecological Footprints Worldwide Fund for Nature India, and Sonu Sood, an AIR correspondent.
15 years ago, when Earth Hour movement started, the focus was only on 1 hour, 8:30 p.m. to 9:30 p.m. on one day in a year, last Saturday of March, when all lights and unnecessary electrical gadgets were switched off to signify the importance of saving energy. But today, every hour counts. Climate change and conserving our planet has become a major challenge which needs to be tackled collectively on a war footing. Can you, to begin with, shed some light on the major environmental challenges our planet is facing currently?
As everybody knows, and we feel it every day, and we have been seeing it for the last couple of years, immense scarcity of water, sudden deluges, floods, cyclones, disasters, as well as landslides, droughts, following floods, repeatedly affecting agriculture production, pandemic-like situation, new vector-borne diseases emerging every year. So there are a lot of all of these environmental issues that are affecting us and the earth in a big way. Most important of that, which I would really like to highlight, is the consumption, the human use of resources and human waste coming from the discard is really, really impacting the earth in the most negative manner. And we, being one of the living species, are also affected equally by it.
So, ma'am, what are the salient aspects of climate change and what challenges are created by it for all of us?
Climate change, as the name denotes, is basically dramatic changes. And it is caused because of global warming. So Earth has an envelope of air around it, which maintains the temperature. And that's how when Earth has water and has life in it. So that entire atmosphere is the life-supporting system. And when we increase the amount of carbon dioxide, nitrous oxide, sulfuric oxide, all of those gases, it starts trapping hot air into the Earth's atmosphere, which then makes the land temperature, the air temperature, the sea surface temperature to go up. Now, basic geography, what we have studied in school several years ago, we know that the water evaporates from the sea and forms clouds, and that's how winds form by the air density and the rainfall happens. Because we have very high surface sea temperatures, there is greater evaporation, and the cloud formation is very early on in the sea. If you were to close your eyes and imagine the Arabian Sea, the southwest monsoon cloud typically becomes heavy enough where it comes closer to the Indian subcontinent in the normal times. But because the rate of evaporation is higher with greater temperatures, the heavy clouds form much before between the African continent and the Indian subcontinent and starts moving towards the land. So now we see the diagonal direction in which southwest monsoon used to travel from Kerala across Andhra Pradesh to Cherrapunji has moved. And it starts from northern Maharashtra, and now Gujarat and western Rajasthan are receiving massive rains. Western Himalayas is receiving massive rains. Cherrapunji is not receiving rains. Eastern Godavari district is not receiving rains. So these changes are happening. And it's like a dominoes effect. One temperature increase will cause all of these changes to happen. Then it's a vicious cycle. The greater temperature, the ice melts. If the ice on water melts, it's fine. So Antarctic melting is not a huge problem. But Greenland ice sheet melting, Himalayas melting means the sea level will rise hugely. If the sea level rises vertically by 1 meter, it's not massive. But if you imagine, it's like a triangle. The sea level vertical 1 meter rise means at least 1 kilometer of seawater coming inside into the land. That means so much of coastal land across the world we are going to lose. So sea level rise is a very big issue. And of course, sudden dry periods, these temperatures, when the vacuum is created, cyclones form. So several cyclones happen. When random clouds come in, cloudbursts happen and devastating floods happen. So there's a lot more damage. So it completely destroys the rhythm and the cycle in which the earth was functioning earlier.
So how far do you feel we are responsible for this? What are the major problem areas which we can fix? What are the solutions?
Human beings are entirely and solely responsible for this. A very small fraction of the change in temperature is because of the fact that the Earth's trajectory changes a little bit, but that's very small fraction. And if we had only allowed that, it will take a couple of more million years before this happens. This is like If I were to use a metaphor, if you kept, I'm going to use a very cooking example for this. You have a brinjal, and if you just keep it out there on the dining table, it'll probably take like a week to shrink and shrivel and dry or decay. But if you were to keep it on a furnace, in less than 5 minutes, we have burnt it. Of course, we make a nice dish out of it, but we have burnt it. So by creating this extreme concentration of the greenhouse gases, by all the activities that we do, industrialization, transportation, cement, electricity, the way we produce so many clothes and factories and consume water, we are extracting all of that out and destroying the environment by concentrating it. So we are really, really speeding up the process of destruction. And that is what climate change necessarily does. And so human beings overall are responsible. Of course, when it comes to this, the share of responsibility of some people is certainly different. Like my own contribution to climate change by living in Delhi, traveling in cars, how much ever I avoid, still need to do that, flying to some places. Obviously, my contribution is going to be much higher than, let's say, a farmer in Maharashtra or a person who is a fisherman who is actually taking care of the environment in the coast of Tamil Nadu. It's going to be very different. But collectively, we are all responsible for it.
So how do you see the role of Earth Hour as a symbolic movement to create awareness about perils of overuse of precious natural resources and about our responsibility towards our future? Do you see this translating into a growing thrust towards recycling, reuse of waste, besides avoiding wastage of energy?
In 2007-06, when the Earth Hour started, at that point in time, it helped bringing focus. It was visible. It was like a brand ambassador. We do bring in Amitabh Bachchan to promote a cause, Pulse Polio, so that people will understand and listen. So it is like that. By switching off, by creating a visible impact, you're making people question and raise the concern in people's mind to ask those questions. But increasingly now, I think Earth Hour, in my mind, translates as this is the final hour we have left in our hands before the ensuing destruction that is going to happen, before the floods become frequent, the droughts become frequent, the sea comes in, we have new diseases coming in. This is the last hour we have left. This is like the 1 hour before the board examination that you have to prepare an answer. So I think the most important message for Earth Hour this year is the urgency that it should make all of us feel in terms of saying each one of us need to do our most. Each one of us need to do our best. Every time we buy something, every time we eat something, every time we sell something, we should be thinking, what are the wider impacts of this? Is this going to harm Earth? How can I make it better? So that is the message I want everybody to take from this Earth Hour, to say that this is the last hour left with us to save the Earth and save ourselves.
Ma'am, at the COP26, India has made firm commitments towards reducing our carbon emissions. What do you feel about the issue of developed countries financing developing countries' efforts of reducing their carbon footprint? Faster cooperation is need of the hour?
Absolutely. Faster cooperation has been need of the hour for the last decade, I should say, but certainly now. And the other factor is that India is a different standalone example because we are committing to reducing our emissions while we are still a developing economy, and that is a first ever historic case in point. It has never happened before. So if we achieve this, it's going to be a huge win, and very soon, even if we started out on the process and the way we have started out by shifting to renewable energy, by shifting to electric vehicles, by making all those massive changes, we've actually started that movement on a high, and I'm sure we will achieve. But the point still remains that the question of who will fund this, us or them, should fast dissolve. And all the investment anywhere in the world towards low carbon development should be looked at from a One Earth point of view. And then individual accountability point of view, to say that, as I said in the previous question, that my contribution is higher. So the amount I compensate needs to be higher than somebody, whose emissions are lesser. So if that is the conversation that's happening, it will certainly happen. Increasingly now, as let's say 10, 15 years ago, climate change was not a point of concern in WTO. now in World Trade Organization, climate change is a key issue that's spoken about. So it is taking center stage. It's becoming the core policy. It's actually an existential issue. So very soon these silos will start erasing out on their own, and we will see a lot of influx of funds for specific technology that will be globally applicable.
Thank you so much for these inspiring words.
This is All India Radio giving you the world news. For quick news updates round the clock, follow us on Twitter @AIR News Alerts.
Bangladesh is observing its 52nd Independence and National Day to mark the birth of the youngest nation in South Asia, breaking away from the shackles of Pakistan in 1971. President M. Abdul Hamid and Prime Minister Sheikh Hasina paid rich tributes to the martyrs of the Liberation War on this occasion by laying a wreath at the National War Memorial in Sawar on the outskirts of Dhaka on Saturday morning.
Top Indian shuttlers Prannoy HS and PV Sindhu have stormed into the finals of the Swiss Open at Basel. Prannoy defeated Indonesia's Anthony Sinisuka Ginting 21-19, 19-21, 21-18 in the men's singles semi-final. Former world champion Sindhu defeated Supanida Katethong of Thailand 21-18, 15-21, 21-19 at the women's singles semi-final.
The 15th edition of the Indian Premier League IPL kicked off in Mumbai on Saturday evening. In the opening match, chasing a target of 132 runs, Kolkata Knight Riders were 121 for 3 in 16.4 overs against the defending champions Chennai Super Kings when reports last came in. Batting first, Chennai scored 131 runs for the loss of 5 wickets in the stipulated 20 overs with the help of MS Dhoni's 50 not out of 38 balls. For Kolkata Knight Riders, Umesh Yadav picked 2 wickets. Earlier, Kolkata won the toss and opted to field. In between the toss and the start time, the Board of Control for Cricket in India, BCCI, held a small felicitation function for the gold-winning Olympian Neeraj Chopra. He was awarded prize money worth 1 crore rupees. Boxer Lavlina Borgohain, the Olympian bronze medalist, got 25 lakh rupees. The men's hockey team got a combined 1 crore rupees. Manpreet Singh, the captain, picked up the cheque from Saurav Ganguly. With the COVID situation under control in the country, IPL is being held in India in its entirety after a gap of 2 years with at least 25% capacity of crowd allowed in stadiums this season. With the addition of 2 new teams, Lucknow Super Giants and Gujarat Titans, the IPL will have 10 teams this time. And now let us take a look at the major developments around the world as reported in the foreign press. Let us take a look at the press reports on China. Xinhua writes that China and India, the 2 major developing countries and emerging economies, should stick to their own independent paths and join hands to safeguard peace and stability in the region and the world, the Chinese State Councillor and Foreign Minister Wang Yi said on Friday during a visit to New Delhi. It again downplayed the urgency of the settlement of border issues and said that the 2 sides should place the border issue in a proper position in bilateral relations.
Global Times writes India's strength, self-confidence and international status have developed enormously. Quoting a Chinese expert, noting China-India relations have gone beyond the bilateral level with great international implications.
South China Morning Post writes that border tensions between China and India have cast a shadow over the Chinese Foreign Minister Wang Yi's visit to New Delhi, with India saying ties cannot be normalized until the Himalayan standoff is resolved.
CNBC writes India pushes for demilitarization of border during Chinese Foreign Minister's surprise visit to New Delhi.
The Hindu writes there can be no normality in India-China ties unless the troops amassed at the line of actual control, LAC, are withdrawn. External Affairs Minister S. Shankar told his Chinese Foreign Minister Wang Yi in Delhi on Friday during talks that ended without any joint statement or agreement on the way forward.
Hindustan Times headline reads, "Our relationship is not normal." Jaishankar's blunt message to China's Wang Yi.
Global Times writes, Chinese aviation experts said the pilot losing control of the airplane could be one of the reasons behind the disaster.
CNN writes, China does not have a COVID exit plan. 2 years in, people are fed up and angry.
Al Jazeera writes, China eases investment curves amid unprecedented investor exodus.
Channel News Asia writes, The United States is not sitting on its hands and will more actively pressure China, the world's second largest economy, to change trade practices that Washington believes distort the market, top U.S. trade negotiator Catherine Tai said.
Tibet.net has carried an announcement for Tibetans visiting India on e-visa. In a short circulated video, Representative Ngodup Dongchung of Bureau of His Holiness the Dalai Lama, New Delhi, announced Tibetans visiting India on e-visa to bring along a valid passport while entering India.
Tibet.net writes that during the ongoing 49th UN Human Rights Council session, UN Advocacy Officer Kalden Somo of the Tibet Bureau, Geneva, urged the UN Human Rights Council to press China to give unfettered access to Tibetan regions for the UN High Commissioner for Human Rights during the visit to China and regions under its control.
Reuters report that Chinese streaming platforms, including Tencent Video and iQIYI, have taken down films and video content starring Canadian actor Keanu Reeves after he participated in a Tibet-related concert organized by a non-profit founded by the Dalai Lama.
Let us have some brief news from Afghanistan. AP reports that the female foreign ministers of 16 countries have urged Taliban for a rethink on closing schools for girls.
AFP reports about 24 girls and women chanting "Open the schools" protested in the Afghan capital on Saturday against the Taliban's decision to shut their secondary schools just hours after reopening them this week.
Tolo News reports the closure of girls' schools from grades 7 to 12 faced strong reactions by the international community, including the UN.
Hama press agency reports a small group of women took to the streets of Kabul on Saturday to protest against the Taliban's announcement banning teenage girls from going to schools.
ANI reports that China is set to host the third regional meeting between the foreign ministers of the neighboring countries of Afghanistan at the end of this month in Beijing.
Etidat Rose reports Ahmad Massoud, the anti-Taliban front commander, accused the Taliban for using religion as an instrument to reach their goals.
Now let's have a look at what made headlines in Nepal. PTI cites a Nepal government periodical which says that Nepal adopts India's UPI for digital transactions. It adds that many countries praise the CoWIN app, which was created for vaccination during the first COVID period, and Nepal has now adopted India's UPI for digital transactions.
According to the Kathmandu Post, a sharply divided Nepali Congress has started its Central Working Committee meeting from Friday to decide whether the party should forge an electoral alliance with its coalition partners and the modality for the alliance.
Now let's have a look what made headlines in Bangladesh. Bangladesh has urged the UK Parliament to adopt a motion recognizing the genocide committed on Bangladeshi soil by the invading army 51 years ago in 1971, reports Daily Star. The call was made during a high-profile commemorative event in London to mark the Genocide Day.
The US-Bangladesh partnership is stronger than ever, says US Secretary of State Antony Blinken. He said that defense, developmental, commercial and people-to-people partnership between the two countries is stronger than ever, and they will build upon that foundation for the coming decades, reports Financial Express. And before we end, a quick look at the headlines once again. India's External Affairs Minister Dr. S. Shankar reaches Maldives on a 2-day visit, says India-Maldives special partnership is poised to deepen further. International flights to and from India to resume from the 26th of March midnight. Prime Minister Narendra Modi to share his thoughts in Mann Ki Baat on All India Radio on Sunday at 11 a.m. US President Joe Biden meets Ukraine Foreign Minister Dmytro Kuleba and Defense Minister Oleksiy Reznikov in Warsaw. Indian Minister Anurag Thakur visits iconic India Pavilion in Dubai Expo 2020, assures all support to make India a global film destination and post-production hub. Indian shuttlers PV Sindhu and HS Pranoy storm into singles title clashes of the Swiss Open at Basel. And the 15th edition of the Indian Premier League kicks off in Mumbai. Chennai Super Kings set a target of 132 runs before Kolkata Knight Riders in the opening match.
And now before we end, let us listen to Mahatma Gandhi's favourite bhajan Vaishnav Jan by artists from Bangladesh on their Independence Day.
And with that, we end this bulletin. We'll be back at the same time tomorrow with the next edition of World News.